I'm Olivia.
I'm Laura, and this is Ruffly Speaking, a podcast driven by honest, curious conversations about life with dogs.
Each episode, we explore one story or idea that helps us see our relationships with dogs a little differently.
It's not about perfect training or quick fixes. It's about the real, sometimes messy, always evolving nature of sharing life with dogs.
Do, 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 do.
Don't agitate Darwin, though.
I know. My Darwin is currently very dead asleep.
The original Woof Ruff.
Oh my God, Laura, it is our last episode of the season. Are you ready for this? Are you feeling like sad?
I was like saying like our intro and like I was already starting to think like, I'm gonna miss this little thing.
I think it's gonna be good though. Like I think we're gonna be super refreshed for when we come back for like season 2, and we're gonna have all these new ideas. And we're gonna have the nice summer off. So it'll be nice for us to get some like vitamin D and feel all refreshed before we get back into it. Are we gonna start in November again? I feel like that was the time we started and it was like eternally depressing.
I know, it was so sad, and then like the episode had to be like so early because otherwise like the sun would just like leave us. So yeah. But I feel like we could do a bit of I feel like we're doing the same thing as TV shows where they kind of like have that break for summer and then they come back like when the school comes back. So like maybe we can start a little like less depressing a little early, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe we enjoy this.
It's funny
break a
that
lot.
you said that. It's so funny that you said that because the first time you said that, where you're like, "Oh, we're taking the summer off like TV shows," and I'm like, "Oh my God, TV shows do that." And like I think I forgot that because we like watch streaming services now, so there's no like break into like production for TV shows.
Like new generations
wow.
don't know what it was.
Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah, we are a original cable network television show taking a break for the summer. But yeah, we're super excited for this episode because we are going to be doing our season recap, kind of reflecting on all the episodes that we've done so far and our thoughts as we go into season 2. So we'll have some discussions about, I don't know, what you thought about the season, what I thought about the season, things that stuck out to us, things that we learned, things that we want to change, because I know this was a whole like learning process for us both. So it'll be fun. And we have lots of things that we want to talk about.
I know. And I feel like we really needed, because when we filmed our like last official episode, we were like, okay, perfect. But like, we feel like we really needed this like recap where we can really just like reflect, because I think like this thing started very much like that. Like our first like mini episodes were very much about us sharing that we didn't know anything about podcasting and like the issues that we were having and the logo. So I think like it's a good ending that we also have to like take the time to reflect and just see what we learned, because I feel like we've been living this experience, but of course both of our experiences are gonna be similar in some ways and then different in others, just like we were talking with Toby about the dog. So I am excited to hear like your perspective, the things that stuck for you, and just see if it's the same as me or maybe you have different like reflections on that. So I am excited to just do our little recap and then close this chapter before like we open the new one, because I am so excited. Like I already have so many ideas of like, okay, what we're gonna do on this break and like little projects that are coming up. So you know I'm a bit of a workaholic. So the break is not gonna feel so breaky.
She's gonna be like, what else can we make? What other content? What can we put on YouTube? No,
girl.
I'm excited. Okay, wait, pause. I think I need to let my dog out because she's like, how come I'm stuck here?
Okay, a little Darwin pause.
Go. Yeah.
I was just thinking that we should like put like this little like edit so we can add this little break like they used to do, putting like the music of like like
a little jingle.
Yeah. Well, you'll like get Darwin out.
Yeah. But like going back to that, because you were like saying how we both have different perspectives on everything, it reminds me of like the Bianca episode we had filmed, and I had quoted something from Bianca, and you were like, huh. You're like, I was there for that episode, and I don't really remember that quote. And
Was I
it
present
speaks,
there?
yeah, it speaks to how we have such different experiences, even though we can be in the exact same room at the exact same time and be in the exact same environment, but we're just picking up on different things and things are sticking with us differently. So I think that's why we wanted to do this episode, because, you know, we have different experiences about everything. And honestly, I have a terrible memory, so I had to really
I
go
feel
back.
like that's gonna be the issue. Just gonna be like, okay, let's remember what we did. Damn it! Like, I actually wanted to like pull the iPad just to have like all the episodes in there. Actually, well,
I mean, if you want to get,
also
yeah,
have
go
that.
get it. Yeah, go get your iPad. Because, like,
It's very
anybody
close.
who knows me knows that I have a Dory brain, and I will, like, we film an episode, and 5 seconds later, I will forget everything we talked about.
Like, what did we do?
And I was like, I have no
Okay.
idea. I can't tell you. But yeah. So yeah, get your iPad out so you have
I
your
got it
notes. I wrote a
here.
couple notes,
Perfect.
but hopefully
Let me
my
see.
memory is on today, because who knows?
I mean, let's see. But now I'm gonna have all of our episodes here, so that way I can even kind of like go through them and we can start listing it. Oh my goodness, we look such like my bangs were not banging in the beginning. I went like all the way down, and it's like, damn it.
I did go back and like just quickly look at our first few, like even the mini episodes, and I'm like, holy smokes, even our audio was so terrible. The video quality was such garbage. And just the improvements just slowly along the way, trying to figure out even just the technical issues. Man, what a journey.
I'm seeing even like the thumbnails of like how it started, and yeah, like the quality of our pictures were horrible. The quality of my bangs were horrible.
I know.
I mean, it's very interesting, but I have them all, so perfect. So I love
Yay.
that you touch on that, because I feel like that is one point. Like, as I was going through the questions, it's just like, okay, so like what were, because I feel like we can both agree that I don't know, we'll see, but like I think like the biggest challenge was all the technical issues. Like, oh my god, guys, we
100%.
had so many technical issues, especially when we tried to do on the same room together. I mean, we have that one episode about like Darwin's diet, and we barely made that happen, but we almost had to like fully scratch that episode because it was just, the audio wasn't saying, everything was weird. It took us so much to actually like sit down and record that. And I remember I had a nails appointment right after that. I don't know why I decided like, oh, it's gonna be enough time, and then we just had to like rush through everything. So yeah, I think like that was a challenge, but people don't know that we had a second attempt at doing like in person. And it literally took us, I think, like, I don't know, like we lost like 4 hours of our life between troubleshooting and then having to like record, but then we were feeling like so devastated, and then it was just like, oh, you know, like that's it, like we're not gonna do this. And thank goodness, because you said that it was very bad quality.
It was terrible. Like, all the audio was off. And this is a lot of this technical issue stuff as well is, well, first of all, it's us learning about the program and what the capabilities are in person versus doing it online like we usually do. And it's also because, to be quite honest, we're on a budget. We don't have all the equipment to be able to do everything perfectly. And I'm sure if we had lots of money at our disposal, we would be able to figure it all out pretty easily. But we're trying to make things work with what we have in the moment. And so a lot of this stuff is just not well equipped to be doing live in-person recordings in the same space at the same time. So if you saw any of our like BTS videos, we had like 5 phone cameras around us, and like Mike's situation was really, you know, it wasn't the best. So it was a lot of figuring things out as we were going and trying to make things work with the tools that we had. But yeah, that was probably that last one where we spent like 4 hours troubleshooting and then recording, and then realizing the recording stopped, and then being like, fuck.
Oh yeah, I love that. I forgot that it stopped. Like we were like
so
in the middle
done.
of the episode, and then it was just like, wait a second, I disappeared. And it's like, no. Oh, it was
It
so
was so
painful. But yeah,
bad.
I think like you touch on a good point. That is that we are doing this on a budget, on a very slim budget. And I was just thinking back of like when we were, I think like one of our first episodes, we were telling the story of how we started doing Instagram lives, and then like I was just watching that the other day, and it's just like, I don't know, like our logic is not logicking to me because like we were saying of like we were doing the Instagram lives, but then we thought about it, and like we are so busy, we have our businesses, we're doing all of these things, which you would think that leaves you to, so we're just gonna be doing the Instagram lives, and then our reasoning was, so then we're gonna be starting a podcast, and then we're gonna have all the branding and all these things, and it's like that doesn't make sense. I don't know how we went there, but I think it was just like we wanted to take it seriously, and we were like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right, and like do it like long term, which is another thing that we were like reflecting on, that like if you watch like our YouTube views and things like that, they're very poor. But we were saying of like how we don't even think about those things right now. We're just like really living the experience. And I don't know if like that is the same for you, but that is how I see it. Like to me, the richness of this podcast is really all the conversations that we've had, like all the connections that we've made. We've been able to like talk to people that otherwise would be very weird to just say, hey, do you want to have a chat with me? And now it's like, okay, we have a podcast, we can share that, and it's not just on us. So I think like just really like the journey is the reward rather than chasing those views, which I mean, we're going to learn. We're hopefully going to figure out how to fix that as well. But I think really like the goodies from this project comes from just doing the thing. And then like the thing that we put out is just like, okay, that's kind of like the final product of what we can put together right now. But really the thing, like doing it is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like, we're not in it for the money. We don't make any money off of this. And it is very time consuming to like, I would say maybe for one episode, it probably takes a total of 6 to 8 hours in total just to produce one episode. That's including like scripting, scheduling people, recording the episode, editing the episode, publishing it. So a lot of this it's our passion project, and we're not really getting like anything out of it other than the fact that, like you said, we're building these connections with people that we wouldn't normally talk to, and we're learning more about each other and learning more about how to dog train better just for us and our businesses. So there's so much more to this than what people would think in terms of like, oh, getting views and like making money off of it. And that's not it at all.
And I think like that is such a good point, because like I've been reflecting lately, and I think like people at this point, if they have listened to other episodes, they know it. But like I am kind of like just questioning like everything, the system, and anything they see something, it's just like really every problem that you see outside really comes down to money. Like the concept of money really kind of like ruins a lot of things. And you see people who are like very organic and very natural and very kind of like genuine, and then they get into like just like in the sponsorship, and then they lose that, and it's just like money can just keeps like, even like musicians, like we follow these musicians that it was just like, wow, like such great art, and they're like, you can see the passion, and then all of a sudden they are like working with Sony, and that now they're doing these collaborations that it just doesn't feel like them anymore. So just like to me, and like money really ruins things. So I really love the fact that in here, like I feel like right now in like society, we really have to start tapping into that like true passion. And then if you do what makes you happy, you're gonna do it like so much better, because like it makes you happy, and that's contagious, and people feel that and they see that. So I think like the more we can hopefully at least inspire people to not always think about the money, and really think about like your personal growth and how that is gonna lead you to other things, or like how you can build this tiny project and then just watch it like snowball. Because I think with both of us, we have our businesses, and we've seen that effect of like something that just started as a logo that someone made, it turned into a real thing, and then you have clients, and then you have these things. And I was just thinking of that when you posted about your first anniversary of like, like you really started turning the graphic and the logo and the idea into reality. And I think like that is really the coolest part of starting any project, really sticking to it. So I think like that is like one thing. So now that we're doing this, I guess that is gonna be good for us to start like answering like, okay, what was in terms of like your personal like Olivia, like what was your biggest learning from this past months?
Ooh. You know what? For me, to be honest, is, and I think we said this at the very like first or second mini episode, was learning to coherently put thoughts into words, into verbal words. I think for me, I struggle a lot explaining myself or getting a thought out coherently without using a lot of filler words and doing a lot of but, and I still struggle with it, but it's gotten a lot better, and learning how to slow down and process my thoughts before saying them. Because I think for me, I just want to fill the space with words because I don't want to sound dumb. And I want it to sound very eloquent and flowing out of me very naturally. But I think I've learned it's better to just maybe slow my speech down, let my brain think a little bit longer before I say those words. And so I'm not always just saying but all the time. And that's just a personal development for me through this podcast. And there I go again.
It's a work in progress.
So I still do it, but it's way less than what I used to do. So that's been the biggest kind of journey for me personally in doing this podcast and learning how to speak to people coherently and properly without throwing in a bunch of filler words and trying to sound smarter than I am.
I mean, like, it's honestly like very crazy because I remember the first time we edited like those mini episodes. That was the first thing that we were like, holy shit, every other word it's like, or,
I know.
and I mean, we're still like, I when I edit, I don't know if it's just that we just got into the point where we cannot like micromanage everything, because I think the first time I was editing, I was going like word for word, like fixing every single thing. And then it was just like, okay, you know, like you have to like own it, like just put it out there and that's it. But I think we have got a lot better, at least at that we kind of like say more words before a like or and I think like that is another thing I've been noticing, because in the process of editing, I don't have to just listen to myself, but I also listen to other people. And I feel like I've been also being like able to pinpoint like their own like these catchy things of like what they do. Like sometimes for some people is like or you know, or like there's like different words that everyone uses and the way that everyone copes with silences. And for example with oh man, like right now I'm like blanking on the name, Julia that you mentioned, of like she speaks a lot, like, you know, like very fast, just like you. So it was just like, okay, let's just do it. But it's so different the way that she speaks fast, because I think she speaks fast but she doesn't say like too many ums or ahs. Like she has like her thoughts well put, and I think like in contrast I am just like blah, blah, blah. And that is a thing that I'm still like actively working as a person, like just slowing down. Like I was listening to Toby's episode and he was just like, oh my god, what am I saying there? But anyways, like you have to like make pieces with that. And like sometimes I don't listen to the episodes because it's like it's still uncomfortable for me to like listen to myself, which is just like but I'm getting better at that, I think. And also because I'm listening on my bike, so like when I'm biking I cannot like change or do anything. It's just like enduring my talking. So I hope that people find it enjoyable, because I personally I don't think I have like a podcaster voice. Like I don't know, I listen to other podcasters and it's just like they have like a very soothing voice, and I don't know, like the way that they pronounce things, and I just think like I am very like like very yappy, like a palm. So I feel like the more we go into this, the more I see that palm in me. But we're working on it. For me, it's also being trying to like listen more. I feel like for a long time I was listening and then I just wanted to know like what to reply and what to do. And I think with
Mm-hmm.
this podcast thing, because normally it's like three of us, and then it's also like seeing like, hey, do you want to say something there? And it's just like all of that coordination helps my brain stop and know, like, kind of like pay attention to other things rather than just preparing my response. So I think like that has been like a good practice for me also to like notice more of what's happening outside of me rather than just being in my head and just wanting to like get my thoughts out. So that patience
Mm-hmm.
of like having a little space, doing a little pause, it's
Mm-hmm.
been also very helpful for me.
Yeah. And what you said about how we were really micromanaging the first few episodes and really editing them, I think that goes back to the idea that we primarily have spent a lot of our time editing Instagram content
Mm-hmm.
or short form content. So you do have to get really good at slicing up things and
Mm-hmm.
making them
Mm-hmm.
really concise. Whereas a podcast, you're looking at editing something that's an hour, maybe even 2 hours long. So you really have to live in this longer space and be okay
Mm-hmm.
with those pauses and those filler words. Because in Instagram content, you would want to take all of that out, like take out that
Mm-hmm.
2 second pause, take out that like, take out that because it's just a waste of time and people just want to like run through reels really fast. So I think that was also an adjustment of just
Mm-hmm.
living in the space and letting the conversation exist rather than having to over edit something, because then you kind of lose a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of the essence of the conversation when you tend to micromanage and really edit out all those little things. So I do think we're getting better at it, both of us. But we'll continue to get better, hopefully. And maybe by season 15, we'll be like the most eloquent people on the planet.
I know. Well like by season 10. We'll get there. But for now, we're literally like in the beginning. I know that it feels like we've been doing this for, I mean, for a good chunk of months. But I mean, we're just getting started in like the big thing. Like I check other podcasts and they have like 50 episodes in like one season and things like that. And then they have like 18 seasons. So it's just like, we are literally, I think like when we see this, like in like moving forward, it's gonna be like those mini episodes this whole season. It's just gonna feel like it's just like getting a taste of it. But it was
Mhm.
very, yeah, it was very nice, and I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I think like I didn't know I wanted a podcast until I got a podcast. It's just like, oh, I love this. So
So
we're
now
gonna
that
go.
you, yeah,
Mhm,
now
mhm.
that you do have a podcast, do you think it was harder than you thought it was going to be? Easier? Like what parts were like unexpected to you and what parts surprised you about the
I
difficulty of it?
think I felt like I think like I live my life thinking that everything, like for example, like a podcast or a video or like things like that, they were like so difficult to make. And I mean, I had a bit of a background in radio, so I remember seeing like all the gadgets and all the tools and all the things that they had and like the studios and how they were. So I think like in my brain, everything like took a lot of like infrastructure to get things done,
Mm.
which I think like I was surprised of, like just like it was tricky in the beginning figuring out this whole like Riverside situation and all of that. But I think at the end of the day we got things up and it was just like, now we have a podcast and then it's on
Yeah.
Spotify and now it's on YouTube. So I think like it was like in my head I thought it was gonna be a biggest like hurdle, and I think the editing part, even though I know like I mean it does take a long time just like you mentioned, but at the same time I thought it was going to be worse. And I think it's also the fact that we are two, like I think that is
Yeah.
the difference. I think in here what made me feel doable is that I wasn't doing it alone for a change,
Hmm.
and this time it was the
Hmm.
two of us, and I kind of like I fully trust you and I know your skills, so I think it was very easy for me to like feel supported throughout this. So I think like that was the biggest part. I wouldn't have gone and done this on my own if it wasn't with
Yeah.
you.
Oh, well, I 100% agree because without you, it would have been a lot of work, but in the same way, not as difficult or as challenging challenging as I thought it was going to be. Because the same, like I thought, oh my God, we have to get all this equipment and get all this stuff and set it up. And we have to learn all this new tech and learn this new program to edit and everything. And that sounds very daunting at the beginning. But once you start doing it, like the first few episodes, we were like, oh, I don't know. Like, how do we do this? How do we put this clip in? How do we edit this out? Or how do we fix the audio? And so, yeah, there is a big learning curve at the beginning. But now that we've found our flow and we're dividing all of our tasks in half, it makes it a lot easier. And it's definitely not as hard as I thought it was going to be. If anything, it's just workload. It's just a lot. So it takes a long time, but it's not like challenging in a way where you're like pulling your hair out and you're stressed about it and things like that. But yeah, I feel the exact same way. And it's nice having somebody, because I feel like you and me, our skill set in terms of like tech and the producing things is very even. So I don't have to worry about like, oh, is she going to know how to put that video clip in or edit the audio perfectly? Like I can just trust you to figure it out and not have to worry about it, because we're both resourceful in that way where we can figure the tech side of it out. And I think that's the biggest thing with this, because we're doing it primarily online and everything needs to, be fixed through some sort of program or something. So yeah, having you makes it 1,000 times easier, but I can see how it can be overwhelming if you're one person.
Yeah, because honestly, I just thinking of like, okay, yeah, you have the podcast, but after that, you also have to like, okay, like promote the thing, like doing reels, and then like having all of that set up. So I think like that other part is tricky, and I think like in this season we had like you can really tell how much time we had of like how many reels we put out per episode. So like there is a chunk where it's just like not many, because I was a little bit freaking out back then, and then we had those moments. But I think like one thing that I like, it really helped me chill, because I did have a bit of a freak out at some point. I think like in the beginning we started doing episodes every week, and then very quickly it was just like, no, like I'm gonna freak out. And I remember I had just a huge panic attack, and I told you, and you said one thing that it was just like, well, this is supposed to be a fun project, so like if it's creating us stress, like right, literally there's nothing at stake, like no one's listening, no one's expecting the episode, so like we can put the rules. And that was just like, oh my God, that is so freeing. So I think that other side is also cool, that I think we were very aligned in like making sure this was enjoyable, this was fun, that we were enjoying the process. So I think like if I had someone more intense than me, it wouldn't be very stressful turn, like trying to keep up with that. But I think like you're really good at like grounding me when I freak out. So I think like that part, it was just like every time I was stressed, it was just like, it's okay, nothing's at stake, like we can do this. So that's helpful.
If anybody's wondering, I would say every about month or so, I receive a personal podcast from Laura in the morning on WhatsApp. It's like a 5-minute voice note of her freaking out about something. And I'm like, don't worry, it's all good. We'll figure it out.
I know. So sometimes it's a call, and that's when you know shit's gonna hit the fan.
I was like, oh, she's calling me. It must be really serious.
And it was. I was freaking out major. But yeah, so like that is kind of like our dynamic. And I think like everything that you see here in the podcast, it pretty much is what we do, like our relationship in the day to day. So I think that yeah, like for some reason it just kind of like flows very easily, which I really appreciate. And I think like this podcast in the beginning, I was just like, ooh, like this is really gonna be like a good test, because now it's something that we both share. So it can be or like either good or bad. But I think like the more I work with you in like different scenarios and in different things, like the more I like you, which is not normal for it to happen. Like sometimes it's the opposite for people. But like with you, it's like, look at this girl.
I'm glad. I think it's because I can match your level of intensity, but I also have a really grounding, calm, like I don't really freak out. Like I don't have emotional highs and lows. I'm pretty like flatline, which is probably why you have to be like, Olivia, show more excitement on the podcast. Because I'm just
Can you
so
repeat
like
that?
Yeah, I'm just
More
so
excited.
flat. But it's a positive thing in some ways when you need somebody to just like pull you back down to earth and not have you like, not get caught in all your craziness. So there's
We
its
all need
pros
an
and
Olivia
cons.
in our lives. It's a lot
But you
easier to
also
pump you up.
yes. Exactly.
I love it.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to our questions here because I know we have a lot. We've already been talking for like 30 minutes.
I know. I mean, we do have like that. Well, there is this one where it's just like, what moment made us realize, oh, wow, people are actually listening to this. And
Oh,
I think that, at least for me, and I feel like we share that. It was the moment where people started sharing stories of them in their
yeah.
car listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, like people are like, we are actually going to work with this person. And like, she's like listening to us talk on that way. Like, it
Yeah.
just feels like a privilege.
I know. There was like a few, like Amanda Murphy's mom. She was really sweet and posted some stuff about them listening to the podcast. We have Pal, our bestie, always commenting on YouTube. We have Charlie always sharing stories about, listening in the morning on their commute to work. And so anytime somebody shares something like that, we're like, oh my God, we're part of their routine and like we're part of their lives and they're listening to our conversations. And I think sometimes it's like I forget that people listen afterwards. Like you record the episode, you have the conversation, you're like reflecting on it. Wow, that's really great. And then people are like listening and chiming in. And my sister-in-law will sometimes message me, even though she doesn't have a dog. She'll message me and be like giving me all these like comments and notes on the episode. And I'm like, what is she talking about? And I'm like, oh, about the episode. Because I forget that people listen, but it's really awesome when you get that feedback.
And now you can really tell why we don't care about like our low views on YouTube because this is our vibe. Like we are just like in it to do it and then we put it out and we're just like, okay, amazing, the next one. So I think like yeah, like those moments are just like, oh, this feels so good. Like I feel so special. So yeah, anytime someone tags, it's like, yay. So I love that. So we can pivot into the like some learnings. So was there a guest or a conversation that challenged our perspective?
Oh, you go first.
Well, actually, when I read this one, I realized that it's kind of like more of like what to come for season 2 because I feel like a part of me I mean I love the people that we got into, but I think like we also got them into because we are very aligned into like what they're doing and how they're doing it. So like I feel like one thing I would love to explore more for like next season, it's starting to bring people that are still aligned with like what we're doing, but maybe they are doing something different, something new, something that we've never tried before, or like something that really pushes that envelope a little bit into like, okay, maybe have a conversation with someone. Like, so for example, like one thing I have in mind is like it would be really cool to have a conversation with maybe a more balanced trainer that we still kind of like respect and like see that she's having like those key part of like empathy, relationship, and all of those things. But maybe she uses tools or something like that where we can really have a conversation that brings something different. Because I think like this season we really kind of like stick to people that are very aligning very different things with us, and I think it would be nice to explore how we can navigate that type of conversation, because that is just in general something that I want to do more in my life, or like talking to people that I don't agree with. So I don't know, like maybe like 2 years ago, I started to kind of like listening to like commentators of like the opposite side, like politically, and I'm never like very political as a person, but like you clearly have bias of like like you connect with this type of idea. So it was just like I really want to make an effort of like having at least listening to what the other person is saying, and just knowing like what is going on in their heads and like how they're making sense of things. Because at the end of the day, I read this recently that like no one does something unless they think it's reasonable to do so. So like people, like even people who do evil things in their head, like whatever is happening in there, it's reasonable for them to take those steps, because otherwise they wouldn't. Like it kind of like goes against our system. So it's like, everyone has a reason. So I think like just pushing, like I wouldn't like talk to like a dog daddy, for example, because like I literally have nothing to talk to a person like that. But like, I mean, like I have like, I don't know, like someone like that I'm like very curious about is like Tyler Pooch. So she
Mm.
is from Toronto and she's a balance
Hmm.
trainer, but I really love how she works. And I love that she doesn't like default to like a prong collar to every dog. And I think actually our pal, Paul, has done training with her. So it's just like, I would
Oh,
really love to
really?
have like that type of conversation. Yeah, like I've seen that in like their, because she's from Toronto. And I think like she's
Ah.
their trainer. So it's just like, that would be interesting. But like, like I feel like for me, this season, I didn't have like one particular conversation
Mhm.
that really challenged everything. But that's something that I would like to tweak for the next one.
That's such a good point. And I think we did that strategically for our sakes because we were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is a huge thing that we're doing and we've never done it before. We're kind of nervous and we don't know how we're going to sound on a podcast. And we want to be comfortable enough to have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation that feels natural and feels like we're just talking to a friend. So we did very specifically pick local people in the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
our season to so at least somebody that we had already a connection with so that we could
Mm-hmm.
feel really comfortable in the environment of filming the podcast. So that was very intentional on our part, just for our
Mm-hmm.
sakes of not feeling super nervous about recording these things. So that makes 100% sense as to why we didn't feel like super challenged in our perspectives because we
Mm-hmm.
did pick a lot of people that just fully aligned with us and had the same feelings about how we handle dog behavior, how we went about training, and things like that. So I totally agree with you. I'd love to talk to more like balance trainers or even people that just think differently about something in some
Mm-hmm.
way and see how we can kind of come together, where it aligns, where we differ, and
Mm-hmm.
see how our maybe minds can change. Because I do love Tired Pooch. I love her stuff on Instagram and how she goes about training things. It's just a matter of seeing whether or not they're really in it for the dogs or whether they're in it for
Mm-hmm.
their ego, which is what I
Mm-hmm.
think Dog
Mm-hmm.
Daddy is for. So,
Yes. And I think like that is the biggest thing. I think like at the end of the day, our core values will stay the same. And I honestly, like looking back, I wouldn't do it any other way. Like at least I
yeah.
didn't feel like at all prepared to have like public conversations that are kind of like, yeah, like more risky in that sense because it's like, guys, we're like learning how to walk here.
Hmm.
So we're not just going to
Yeah.
go for a marathon immediately. So I really want us to like start like warming up to there. But I think like, yeah, just like you mentioned, like we also have to set ourselves up for success, I think, like the same way
Hmm.
that we talk about our dogs. And I think like this was that part where like it has to be this way so we can really warm up and like we can also like work on our thoughts and our ideas because
Hmm.
imagine like having like that like third guest and then it's just gonna be this like super challenging person that is just gonna and we're gonna be saying all these likes and ums because we don't know what to do. It's just like it wouldn't make sense, but I am excited to work towards that, like even continuing to like maybe like in my personal life like have more of those conversations on my own, like not publicly, just like
Hmm.
personally, and then kind of like prepare myself towards that. But I think like that would be a bit of like my goals for the following seasons, and we'll start slow. I don't want to throw myself into like just like
Hmm.
the cliff like
Over
I
the
forgot that
cliff.
word over the cliff. But yeah, I think like that is one thing. Anything for you?
Yeah. I mean, I do have a couple people in mind that I would love to get on for season two that would challenge our perspectives a little bit more. So definitely, I'm very aligned with you on that sense. And I feel the exact same way. But thinking back to this last season, what do you think are some themes that kept coming up over and over again through different episodes, through different guests? Is there like a through line that you kind of noticed and was a callback to previous episodes?
Honestly, I think like there are two things, which is trust and relationship. I think like no matter which episode we were
Yeah.
talking about whatever, I think like everything just came back down into like trust and relationship, even in our like businessy episodes with like Oldie Be
Yep.
Good or Weekly Babies. I think at the end of the day, even in the business sense, trust and relationship were the huge things, like the connections they were making, the decisions they were making in terms of which products to have and which things to have. I think everyone just kind of like came down to those two things, and especially talking about dogs even more so. So like at the end of the day, I think those are the two things that as values, as are things to put at the top of the mind, I am just like way more certain of those are the things that really matter.
Yeah, no matter what episode, whether it's Camille with the big cats or Julia working with dogs in the ring or Toby working with rescue dogs, it always came down to trust and building that trust with whatever animal you are working with, especially dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I noted that immediately too. I was like, it's crazy how you can have people from all different sorts of walks of life not have them meet each other, but the people that really work with the dogs one on one are there for the dogs, want the best for the dogs, understand that that's where you start, is just building that
Mm-hmm.
trust and building that relationship from that trust. So yeah, that was really nice to see that kind of flow through every single episode, no matter who we talked with.
I know, and I love that we both picked up. It was very clear, like every episode, it was just like this just keeps coming back, guys. So I love that. Okay, so what do we think the dog world needs more of right now?
I read this question and I was like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, we need to understand the dogs better. We need to understand behavior more. We need to slow down and really think about their needs versus our needs. And I'm like, well, that just sounds so generic because obviously everybody's going to agree with that. But then sometimes you step outside of our bubble and you're like, no, not everybody sees it that way
Mm-hmm.
still, And there's so
Mm-hmm.
many people that just like I was at a city market the other day and I had a bunch of people come up to me and talk about dog training. And there was this woman that came up to me kind of asking about my services and everything. And she was talking to me about how her friend has this dog who's really misbehaved. And she was saying, anytime the dog's with her, the dog behaves so well because she's the alpha. She shows him who's boss. She shows him who's dominant, and she knows how to assert her energy. And I was like, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Because even though we think there's so much information and knowledge about, the way that we particularly think about dog behavior and training dogs, no, the world doesn't think that way still. There's a lot of people that just don't think that way. And you got to still push that message and continue to put out content that clearly shows, to prioritize dogs' needs. But it's wild to think that there's just so much misinformation still out there just in the general
Mm-hmm.
public and how people treat dogs and how people train dogs. So um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think the world just needs more of what we're doing, to be quite honest.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, like, I think like my answer is gonna also come back into like, we're doing amazing here. No, but because I think like just in general, we need to be able to talk again. I think like that is where I feel that we build this society where we feel like we are walking on eggshells and like we cannot
Mm,
have like I have, like we even like brainstorm different like ideas or topics for episodes. And it's just like I can like sometimes get angry that I cannot have those conversations without being afraid that people are gonna come for me.
yeah.
And it's not like I'm gonna say like, oh yeah, you should hit your dog. Like not at all. But just like even indulging thoughts and like having, because I am a person like I mean my friend Olivia knows this too, and like you're used to with Ricky, but like my mind is always thinking and questioning things, and like it's crazy because like, sometimes I ask Fernando like, have you thought about that? And he's like, literally never. I never think of those things of like, how do we exist? What is reality? What is this? And Fernando's just like drumming something in his head. I am like, it's crazy to me that not everyone is considering these things, and we're just like waiting for the pause, and I'm just like questioning the reality of
That's
life.
so
But
funny.
that is like my head, like that's how I operate. So I'm always thinking of like, how does this work and how it was, and like when did we start going wrong, and like like that is just my head all the time. So like for me, it's like I would love to have so many more conversations and talking things and like not being so sensitive, I think, about certain topics. And I think like one step to do that and just have more conversations with people that, just like we were saying, like people we don't fully agree with, and like being able to have a conversation and disagree, and then continuing to respect the person on their own way. Like no one has to change their mind. We can just have a conversation and like talking and like questioning ideas and like hearing what the other person says. I think like that is something that I would love to see more of. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to start speaking more and processing my thoughts and having all of these type of conversations, even when people that you do in theory agree, because I feel like, you know, like we all connect in like so many ways, but like one person that you really love may disagree in like one thing, like completely kind of like thinking something super opposite to you. And I feel like sometimes we just hyper focus on that one thing that we disagree on, instead of really kind of like seeing all the other things that we agree on. So I think like that is the part that I would say. And I'm going back. I really love that we're doing this, because at least we're adding that little like our little grain of salt in there of like, this is what we like. And I think like we mentioned this in the first episodes of like, for us to see those things happening, we need to start to have those conversations ourselves. So I think like I am feeling very good for the fact that we had really awesome conversations this season. And I look forward to continue expanding on that on the next one.
Yeah, I love that. I know it's really challenging, especially when you say like labels themselves are so challenging because people have all their own connotations and biases towards these labels. So even saying something like, "Oh, we want a balance trainer on the podcast," there's a whole host of people that would be like, I'm not
How dare
supporting this
you?
podcast. I can't, you know. But it's not like we're saying slap an e-collar on your dog, slap a prong collar on your dog, and let's get training. We just want to hear more about their perspective and see where we align and see where the boundary is, right? It's not about promoting their line of work or anything. It's just being more open about these conversations so that we can empathize with each other more. And I think that's also what this world needs, doggy or not doggy, is more empathy. So
And just like seeing beyond the ideas and kind of like seeing the person, because I think like that is a cool thing. And I was actually just watching this video the other day about the Hermetic principles, and just kind of like this kind of like ancient like theories and like principles basically of like how the world works, and how, you know, it's so ancient, but like now with so much evolution that we've gone through, we're kind of like arriving to the same conclusions that we've known all this time. And one of those principles is the principle of polarity. And I even like wrote this down, because it was like opposite sides are like completely identical, because apparently like the idea is that it's all a spectrum, you know, so it's the same spectrum, but it's just like different degrees. And I really love that idea of like how, like, for you to take a picture, you need a positive and a negative, because otherwise you don't have a picture. So it's just like there is a use for opposite sides, and it's really all about finding those points, and like balancing and staying in the middle, and kind of like, yeah, like the balancing act between like positive and negative, that where you really find that like, yeah, like that kind of like balance point, and not balance as in balance trainer, but like balance as in like in life. So I was just like, I really love that idea, you know. And I think like we take it like right now, our society is like so polarized, where we see the other side as like completely like unreasonable, but it's just like polarity, like even good and bad both need to exist, because otherwise, like if there's no bad, there's no good. So like nothing exists otherwise. So I think like that is the part where I'm just like, I want to explore more of that, and really being able to live in that flow of things being good and then being bad. Because I think like that is the thing too. Like sometimes, at least I've gone through experiences that I can say like it's trauma, it's horrible. Like I don't wish anyone goes through those. But if I look back right now, all those things have given me so many good things, and so much goodies and amazing and joys that have come from me living that horrible experience, that it's just like, yeah, you know, sometimes it's just really like the perspective and the time that really like changes what our experience and our perception is. So I feel like sometimes we really need to just acknowledge that and try to live more in that sense of like not taking like your ideas too seriously, and really seeing how they play off, and then just like really trusting from your own experience rather than having someone else tell you what is right and what is good, which I think like it's what I love the most about all of that. But I could go on a tangent about this. I think like I could start a whole podcast about this, so I'm not gonna. Next podcast is gonna be with Ricky, and we're gonna talk for like 3 hours
I
about
was
life.
just gonna say, I'm like, sometimes when you go off on some of your rants, I'm like, I feel like I'm listening to Ricky talk to me. I was like, you and him are so similar in so many ways. I was like, how did I find a work wife that is exactly like my real husband?
Like, you clearly have a type, Olivia.
The philosophical, thinking about existential questions, which is so funny because as soon as he starts thinking about like existential stuff, I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. It's stressing me out. Like, I don't want to know about our existence and why things are the way they are and why, I can't. The philosophy is just too much for me to handle and my anxiety gets too like high.
Yeah, so you're like Fernando. He's just like drumming as I am just like questioning like the fabric of life. So it's just like,
no, I can't handle it.
oh my god! But it's so funny. You do have a type, Olivia. But anyways, following up on this, yeah, I mean, I think like we already covered this one. So yeah, like which episode, if any, felt more vulnerable to record?
Personally, I don't feel vulnerable a lot in life.
Going back to you being like this all the time.
I mean, if anything, maybe the ones where I had no prior connection to the person, and let's say you did and you brought them into the podcast, and I think that's just my nerves and being like, oh, I have no idea what this person's like, but I trust you, so let's bring them in. But I just have no idea how the conversation's gonna go. But to be honest, some of those ones that you brought in are like the ones where I felt flowed really well and was really surprised by. So yeah, I don't know. Emotionally vulnerable, I don't feel a lot.
What is that?
I just can't relate.
I love it because like when I thought of this, I think for me, rather than the guest and the episode was kind of like maybe the backstage stuff, like both me and Camille's episode were the first one that came to my mind. And it's just the 2 episodes that we actually had to re-record. So like we recorded, but then we didn't feel like we were vibing with whatever product we came out. So like the first one was mine. And I think for me it was just so vulnerable to have to tell you like, Olivia, do you think we can re-record this? And I feel like that was the same time where I was freaking out about like how we're going to keep up with like one a week. And that's when you told me like, it's fine. We can always do it again. So like we all need an Olivia who says, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's very,
no big deal.
It's very calming. But I think those 2, and then have like with Camille, it was the other side because like in this one, it was me and you, so I could just tell you. But this time we had a guest who had given us her time for us to like try this out. And it was one of our first episodes. So I think like we were still learning how to and like have control of the conversation and have the flow and not just, I think like sometimes we would just, at least for me in the beginning, I would just think that it's a video call. So I was just like, just listening to things and then not taking any direction. And then the guest was just like, what the hell am I supposed to say in here? Which I think that was a big learning. So having to reach out to our guest and say like, hey, what do you think? And luckily she was also like not feeling like she said the thing she wanted to say. And then we all agreed that redoing it was the thing. And I think the other learning there is that sometimes you just need to talk to people, like kind of like get the thing out there, not keep it in your mind. And then just like Olivia says, everything is fine. So that's the biggest learning there.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered. Like, I understand. I think those 2 episodes, I was feeling the same way, but I'm not, I don't know. I think because personally I didn't have a lot of stake in your episode that you did, and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
feeling the same way that you did about how you were explaining your life and your story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, no problem. Let's just re-record it. It's no big deal. And then Camille, I think we both kind of felt like, oh, that felt really chaotic. And she felt really chaotic about it because she was like, I don't know. No one knew where the conversation was going. We didn't know how to keep it on track or what we were focusing on. So that was, yeah. And that, sure. I don't know. I think the word vulnerable just to me, it's like it's hard for me to like
Yeah, I'm not
picture in my
vulnerable.
mind what that feeling is. But yeah, I would agree those two. But in the end, I think it all worked out, and maybe that's why I don't feel vulnerable in recording it, because we had fixed it and it all turned out well. So, but yeah, no, yeah, we did have to. I mean, you know what? Throughout the season, we recorded things 3 times. Your episode, Camille's episode, and the
scam episode.
The scam episode we just did, which, man, we will never talk about that day again, because that was
it was too
traumatizing
painful.
for everybody.
Like, I feel like even like the Camille one and mine, like I didn't feel like it was just like, oh, we can re-record, we'll get to chat again, it's fine. But this one, just because of how much time we spent trying to like get it going, and then we kind of like push through like to really record something, and then it turns out that went to shit. So then it was just like, yeah, that one, like it's just like we could like erase a memory, would be that episode.
Both of our social batteries were just completely drained by the end of it. We were like, no, let's just not talk anymore.
When we part ways, and it was just like, our idea was to record like the last 2 episodes in person. It was like, never, no. We're not doing this
not
again.
This season. We'll try it again next season, but we're going to figure it out before we record it.
Yeah, we have to test out. We learned our lesson. But anyway, it's going to like funner things. Your funnest behind the scenes.
Honestly, my favorite one was when Fernando was in the back heating up his food. I don't know why, but it cracks me up so much. I love like slapstick humor where it's like something physically funny happening, and we were both so serious and just like talking, and then he's just in the background not paying attention to us at all, and he's just like boop boop boop, like pulling things out of cupboards.
I know, that was the
it.
first one that came to my brain, of like just seeing him like, hi, like right there. And it was just like, and it was just at the end, we were like just recording our part, and it was just like, Fernando. So I feel like that. And I think Abril did the same one time. I think like we managed to like cut it, but it was the same thing. We were recording and it was just like, hi.
But I think she like backed out slowly. She was like, oh.
Pretending nothing happened.
Yeah.
I think those two.
So
it's
funny.
nice when like other people, I feel like it's just nice when like these moments happen where it really shows us that we are recording an podcast in our living room and you in your spare room because you're fancy that way. But it's just like those things happen, you know, like sometimes we have to like record this fast because they're gonna have a rehearsal in there, because that is my husband's drum kit. I mean, it's just like make believe drum kit, because we live in an apartment. But we have like right here we have a music studio. He recorded his EP in here, and then we have a podcast studio at the same time, and then it turns into my office. So it's just like, you have to be crafty if you want to get things done.
Yeah, so I love that. I love those moments that just happen very spontaneously.
Naturally. And what about the most chaotic moment? Because I was trying to think back of like what recording was when we were just chaos, but I don't remember exactly which episode. But I know that we had chaos a lot.
I mean, other than that one about dogs are a scam, that was absolute chaos. But we've talked about that a lot.
Chaos.
So yeah, that was painful chaos. Chaotic? I mean, it wasn't, the one I'm thinking about isn't super chaotic. It's the observing street dogs in Mexico. And I think it was just the idea of like, do we put these clips in? How does this work so people can see what we're talking about instead of describing it to them? So I know there was a lot of back and forth on that one on a technical side.
Yeah, that is true. That was a bit chaotic. But I think
But
like other
yeah.
than that has been, I think maybe right now I'm like thinking back of like the Oldie Be Good just because of how much her dogs were just kind of like getting in there. And then it was just like
The
the moments where you were like,
honking.
ah, oh, the
The
honking,
honking.
the ghost honking. That
Yeah.
was because then we
There
were
was
just like
something.
triggered and then she didn't know anything and we were just like, what the hell is happening? And then the dog barking and we were just trying to keep our cool, but like
Yeah.
things were happening.
I totally forgot about the honking because in the edit, a lot of the honking was taken out. So me and you were
Mhm.
like in the video, we just look like wide-eyed every now and then for no reason.
So if you watch that episode and you saw us doing crazy faces, it's just that there was a honking that got edited out,
Yeah.
but there was a thing. And we were bad
Yeah.
actresses back then of like, just pretend. Like,
I
I feel like we
know.
didn't understood the software and we didn't know what we could like edit out. So then we were just like reacting in the moment, which I think if it happened right now, we would just be like, just gonna be cool about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because there are some sounds that we can easily take out or the program will easily take out, like in the background. But then there are others, like, I don't know if you listened to Bianca's episode, but I think midway through, somebody is cleaning dishes or washing dishes or something.
That could be Fernando as well.
And it's only for like 2 minutes or something. And I don't know if like the program took out half of it and left the other half in. But when I was editing it, I didn't realize that it stayed in because I thought it had taken it all out. But once I listened to it on Spotify, I was like, oh, somebody's cleaning dishes or something in the background.
See, Fernando is always breaking havoc to her. Like
That guy, I swear.
I know. I feel like I show him. We were editing. I was editing something, and then we were saying of like Fernando is there. We were gonna record like this intro, and you were like, "Is
Yeah.
Fernando there?" And then he was just like, "Beaches." Like yeah, she was like, "You're just like shitting on me." But we love that.
Too funny.
Mm.
We do.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, we have this question like something listeners would never guess happened behind the scenes. So many things. Like you all heard about our traumatizing scam video that we tried to record, which was a lot of chaos. But I think like there's always like so many things that happen, like things that we record and like it was a mistake, things we had to re-record, which we just share. So I think like everything we've been sharing right now are things that behind the scenes that you never get to see. And I think also like our photo shoots, like that we've also made for like our little like covers and everything happening here. Like this place is just like multitasking for everything.
I know. We try to take as much like content together when we're together so we can use it for our like Instagram and stuff. Because, I don't think people know we don't actually spend that much time together in person or as much as we would like to. Maybe like once a month we're together in person. So whenever we have those opportunities, we're like, take photos, take pictures, take videos.
We're gonna start like having changes of clothes so we can really like maximize our time together, or just seeing each other more often. That could also work.
I know. That
We
would
live
be
a busy
great.
life. Okay, I love
good.
this question because it's like if someone only listened to one episode from the season, which one would be?
Do you have an idea?
I mean, I don't know if it's because I think I really enjoyed Funny because it's our first with a guest, but like the Marina episode I really love just because of like so many goodies that kind of like those cross culture type of things that like I was genuinely like, no way you have to put like a little paper underneath the poop. So it's just like those things that it was genuinely like very interesting for me to know, and I think like a lot of people who have watched that have found that very interesting as well. So I think like that one comes to my mind, and also the Toby one. It's like I know it's just one, but I am like ambivalent into those two because I really love just us as interviewers. I think like we're just getting better. So I love that our last guest, it really felt like flowing. And I think like he also brought in like he just is a guy that he can also like talk for ages, and he's very responsive in those things. So I think like, but I feel like that is more of like you can tell how much we've improved. But it's funny how like it's like my first guess and my last guess would be the ones that I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend, which is kind of like we were very new in the beginning.
Yeah, I feel like this question is so hard to answer because all of our guests are so different and we all talked
Mm-hmm.
about such different things. So it's not even like you can compare one episode to another, really, about
Mm-hmm.
like the themes that we talked about and everything. But if, I don't know, because I understand what you mean with Toby because it was our last one that we filmed with a guest. And I do think in that one, we really had a nice flow going and we felt very comfortable. And that's really because we had been doing it so many times before and we got the practice in. And he's such a great speaker as well. And he's very coherent in his thoughts and everything and knows how to get his thoughts across. So Toby is a great episode. One that kind of sticks out to me is actually the Wiggly Babies one. And maybe that's just because it's like a completely different topic
Mm-hmm.
and not really having to do with like behavior. And we kind of got into the sciencey stuff a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there
Mm-hmm.
were some interesting nuggets about treats and manufacturing and sourcing.
My
And
product
maybe
lady.
that's, yeah, maybe that's just because I'm really into products and I love product development. So I thought that side was super interesting. Um, because I didn't know freeze drying preserved potential pathogens and
Very
microbial
important.
content. So I learned something in that one and I thought that was interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but that just speaks to maybe my interest personally, but agreed. Like that
Mm-hmm.
Toby one is definitely a good behavioral one and one where we had a lot of flow going from the episodes. And I think what we want the podcast to ultimately be about, having those really open conversations and being able to share different global perspectives too, because he comes from the
Mm-hmm.
UK and he spent time in Thailand. And it kind of called back to that Marina episode where we see kind of different viewpoints outside of our
Mm-hmm.
bubble that we live in
Mm-hmm.
here in BC.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like that is a cool part because even like for the Bianca episode, like we also like learned so many good things about that part of like Germany. So I think like any
Yeah.
time where we can really expand outside like of
Yeah.
our comfort zone, because I think like that was the same thing with the Weekly Babies, that it was something so different to like
Hmm.
we've like given dogs freeze dried treats, but other than that we have like no idea what goes behind it. And I think also like the thought process of like which proteins to give and like why
Hmm.
and like the sourcing. So I think like you really get to like just open up like a new window of like ideas that you never even thought possible. So yeah, I totally agree because like that was the other one that kind of like came into my brain. But yeah, that's so nice.
Hmm. And then kind of jumping off of that, because one of our questions is, what do we want more of in season two? And we got tastes of that in season one with the global perspectives with Marina, with Bianca, with Toby. I definitely want to hear a lot more about people who live in different areas because that was one of the coolest things about this season was hearing the different perspectives, like the picking up the poop with the paper and catching the poop from like Marina in
Mm-hmm.
Japan, and then Bianca learning that generally dog ownership, they are more proactive in their approach to dog training. I thought that was super interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
they're small things, but just not things you would think are that different in terms of how you approach dog ownership or how you approach behavior and training.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed hearing those little tiny like facts and seeing what the little differences are in
Mm-hmm.
where they come from. Because, man, like I said, sometimes we just get stuck in our own little vacuum and we're just all thinking about the same things. We talk to trainers from the same area and we all agree,
Mm-hmm.
and this is kind of our way of life. But there's such a big world out there and there's so much to learn from other people and how they approach things. So um I would love to get the other Bianca from Punk Mutts
Oh
on
my
this
God. I
on
was
this
just gonna say
podcast.
that. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say that because like that is the first one in my to do. And because yeah, like those are the moments. Like another thing that caught me in the Marina episode, how she mentioned of like all the dogs here are like I don't know potty trained because they
Mm,
work such long hours. So then it just makes sense for them to like pee on pee pads. And it's just like
yeah.
those are the little things that it's just like see, like people are reasonable. Like it's not doesn't come from like out of the blue. And I think like that is the idea of like how when you go into a different culture and you see things, you have like zero understanding. So a lot of the things is like, oh, that's so dumb. So I lately I've been kind of like trying to catch myself when I'm like immediately judging something because every single
Mhm.
time, whenever I learn more, what I thought it was dumb before makes total sense. So
Mhm.
I feel like
Mhm.
that is one thing that is just like every little thing, like for example, like with the dog treats and like this part of like, like what they were saying of like, yeah, people they'll tell us like, why don't you have other proteins? And it could be something like so easy. They're like, well, you can get like all these like super weird things, but it's just like, well, there's a thought process to that. And it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
makes sense. So I totally agree. And I would love to also like, I mean, Punk Mods is like my first one. I think like we already have like Punk Mods, Tire, Pooch. So we're gonna make like our little to-do
Yeah.
list of like everyone who we're gonna be bringing in. But yeah, I would love because like she has such a unique experience, like where she lives and how
Yes.
she works with dogs, and like just the little parts that I've been learning from her. Like I've been applying that so much into my training from like webinars that I took. So I am very interested. Like she's the next trainer that I'm just like giving all my savings to when it comes to buying contents
Yes.
because it's just like,
I
yes, I
know.
want it all.
I know. I just want to pick her brain because she has such an interesting approach to reactivity and emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things she focuses is on is kind of stepping outside that traditional like operant counter conditioning classical conditioning situation and really looking at the dog and their emotional regulation. So I really want to get more into that because man, like I'm an owner of a reactive dog, and counter conditioning can only get me so far, and I want to know what the next step is because yes, she's doing great where she's at now, but I feel like I'm hitting a wall
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with how far I can get with her training. And I feel like a lot of the trainers in our area primarily focus on the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I know that, what else can I do other than engage, disengage, treat
Mm-hmm.
scatters, find its, and,
Mm-hmm.
doing all that stuff, lat, bat, all those things. So I want to get to the bottom of that. And I think Bianca could have
Mm-hmm.
a really interesting perspective on how to deal
Yeah.
with my dog's reactivity.
Man, I honestly like the things I've been like taking from what I learned from her. Like one thing, and this is so different to everything that we learn in like any like like the school of thought that we have here, is this idea of like we always say that like whenever there's a reaction, build more distance, get out of there. Like you're over
Mm-hmm.
threshold, get the heck out of there. But actually, with Bianca, it's just like stay there, like let the dog
Mm-hmm.
regulate,
Mm-hmm.
and of course build distance if things are escalating and things like that, but don't run away. And we just had this, I mean, with Tog right now, one of my clients, we've been having so much success by doing so much of that, like of just like staying there, be a little distance, let him process, let him think, like be with him during his reaction, be with him when like he kind of like de-escalates and like use that. But it's been crazy to see how much like, and I think like I was someone who's just like, if I have a reaction, it's a fail and I have to like get out. And then you have to like go home and his trigger stack and everything is gonna fall down. And I think like now that I'm less afraid of a reaction is like if a reaction happens, number one, I have information, but number two, we can still regulate. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, what we're seeing with Tog is that he has that initial like reaction that he has, like repeating for a while of like seeing a dog posturing, like freaking out. But then once we kind of like just pull him a little bit back, he just sits down and watches the dog go by. And it's just like, this is crazy to me, just like because of everything. And then the mom is like, well, now to me, reactions are not that scary because he can have a reaction and then calm down. So like now, even
Mm-hmm.
for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like more chill. And that is just something that I got from like one webinar with Bianca. And it was just like seeing her work through that. And it's just like such a different idea. So I really love to like start getting maybe even with trainers who are into this like a completely different thing. I remember one time I took this course from this guy, I think is STK9 or something like that. But he's
Yeah.
like very into like yeah, like he trains in different
Nino.
ways. But like I saw the training, and he didn't believe on anything like marker words or like anything. And he was just like, someone was trying to explain something like that, and he's just like, oh yeah, she thinks that works, but like there really is this thing. And it's just like the fact that he doesn't have any of the concepts that I've been learning, but still manages to get behaviors from dogs. Like all those things always like prove me of like how little we know. And I think like once you marry with like one way of training and that is the it, like that's when you lost, because you're missing on so many other ways that sometimes you may see it, understand it, and say like, no, that's not for me. I'm not gonna try that. So for example, with tools, I feel pretty much like that. Like I don't think, like even if I talk to like 20 balance trainers, like I think like my core philosophy is like there's other ways for me to like get my point across, and I'm really interested in like how other ways I can do that. So I don't think like me having a conversation with a balance trainer is going to convince me to use an e-collar, but I would love to understand their reasoning. And I think like my values are like so like in the place that I know what I want and how I want it, but that doesn't limit me from wanting to learn from other people and just see how they do things. What are the results? Okay, I'll take that into consideration for next time, but we're going to learn so much in the next season.
I mean,
I'm so
yeah,
excited.
all that stuff we want to explore. And yeah, I think there's so much, still so much more we can explore with behavior, because we really barely touched on it in season 1 in terms of exploring dog behavior. We were kind of just trying a little bit of everything and seeing where conversations would land. But that's the stuff that really tickles our brain, is reactivity and dog behavior.
That's our thing. Like we can like talk doggies all freaking day. I mean, I think we already talk about like the topics that we're dying to explore, which is just more of those conversations. I mean, I feel like I have this one of like, how do we want this podcast to evolve? So like, let's imagine in like season 5, how would you see that?
Okay, I would love if we could have our studio. If we could have our own studio and in person, because it does change the conversation quite a bit. And I mean, I love talking to you online, and this is great, but there's something that you get in person when you're talking to someone face to face that you don't necessarily get online. So I would love to have our own studio, or at least a space where we can not be traumatized with the setup and the troubleshooting.
I know. I also would love to have that. And like Fernando is the one who's like, you guys should do it like in person. Like it's so different. And like, I mean, for him, like, I mean, like Olivia doesn't drink alcohol, but like every podcast he watches, like people are drinking alcohol. So like, you should do that. Just like, we may not do that whole thing, but like in person does change a lot. So I do see that. I would love to kind of like remain, like, again, this is just me going against the system, like remain independent, you know, like I really don't see ourselves like, because a lot of people is just like, oh, and maybe you can get like a sponsorship and like things like that. But it's just like, once you get outside money, you kind of like accept other people to kind of like guide the direction, say what you can, what you cannot say. Like my dad-in-law, he's like vet, so it's like you should like, you know, like you can get like a sponsorship from like Pedigree or like all these like brands like Purina, and it's just like, no, like that's really not what I want. I don't want to be a representative for a brand. I still like I really want to keep this as like really ideas and like a place where creativity can go. And as I said, like money comes in and ruins everything every single time. Something gets like a buckload of money, and then all of a sudden like people are like mincing their words, and it's just like, no, I think like for me, like the freedom of like saying the things that I feel to say, and I mean, I'm still like getting the courage to say the things that I think, and some things don't have to be said, I think. But yeah, I want us to kind of like keep that, and maybe we can start selling some merch or something to get an income, because we do need that influx of money. But we'll find our way. But I would love to like be independent.
I mean, there's so many other ways to bring in revenue, you know. We could do like events, or I don't know, something,
OnlyFans.
No, I'm just gonna show dog paws.
Only paws.
Only paws.
I mean, Darwin is right there, so we can use her paws in there. So.
She's got some pretty cute paws.
Man, that booty, we can
Yeah.
make it very fluffy.
Yeah, but I agree. I don't want to, because then it becomes a whole different production when you have to include like sponsorships and ads and all that stuff. And by no means are we even there yet with our audience to be able to advertise.
Like brands are not rushing towards us.
Trust us, nobody's coming this way yet. But I think for us, it's just about building community right now and trying to get the conversations flowing around all these different topics that we have been exploring in season 1. So. Yeah.
So interesting. But just to wrap it up, I think that if you could summarize this season in like one sentence, what would it be?
In one sentence. I don't know. I was just going to recite our whole introduction.
This is a podcast, which, as a funny story, I do want to say how I think it was Camille's episode that reminded us this, because in the beginning we were just like recording and yay. And then we realized that we kind of like were forgetting the thing that we say in every introduction of like every episode we explore one topic or idea that helps us see life with dogs a little differently. And it's just like, where was this idea when we were planning for this episode? Because we had like no idea what one thing was. So I think like that really helps us like narrow down and like knowing that every episode we just have to follow what we are saying that we're doing.
Yeah.
So
But, that's what I would say, my one sentence.
And following through on that. I think like for me would be finding our flow, because I think like that is really kind of like how I would say it. And I think like if we ever look back in like, again, 5 years, that's how it's going to feel. Like we were just like babies, like we didn't know what we were doing. And I think even today our setup, it's still, it can be better. and we can like improve the quality and this things or that thing. And still like I have like a somewhat fancy mic, but it's still like sometimes my audio is not perfect. So it's just like figuring so many things out, like even the system of like Riverside, like we were just still like learning things that we can do that we didn't know. So I think one of the tasks to do in this break is just understanding our systems better and knowing what we can do, because there are so many things that I know it can be done better, but because we have to like get things done, sometimes you have to like create patches here and there, and that's it. But I think like that would be my sentence, like we're finding our flow here.
I like that because it's so true. We just had no idea what the heck we were doing in the beginning and still trying to figure things out. So yeah, we're definitely still trying to find our flow, but better at flowing.
And I think like that was one thing that for Toby's episode, like he mentioned of like, oh yeah, like, like you guys are like such pros and you have everything like figured out. Like we're good at pretending we have everything figured out, but we don't really.
Yeah, Bianca said that too. She's like, wow, everything was so easy. You guys set it up so well and everything flowed so nicely. And I was like, yeah, we're really good at acting like we know what we're doing. But also, we're coming to the end of the season, so we're a little bit better than we were 5 episodes ago.
Yeah, trust me, Marina did not get that same flow, I guess.
But thankfully, the people we invited early on, we like know them, so they were much more gracious with us, and we felt more comfortable to be like, hey, like this might not go exactly to plan, but want to try it out with us.
Yeah. And we appreciate every one of those people who said yes when we didn't have anything for our mini episodes and they were sketchy AF. Like, and you said yes. Like every one of our guests, we really appreciate you because it's very nice. And I think like we really got a lot of the people we wanted to talk with, and like everyone was like very open. I think like maybe we had like 2 people that ghost us at the end, and that was it. But I think like other than that, everyone was like, heck yeah. So I appreciate that, especially as a new project where you really don't have an idea of like what is going to happen at the end, and them trusting us is like, thank you.
Yeah, it's been super nice. Everybody's been really supportive, and We just can't thank you guys enough for listening, even though our listener base is very small right now. But just know you guys are the OGs. You were here first.
Exactly. When
So,
you look back in
yeah.
10 years, it's like I was watching. I think like today I saw a video on like a YouTuber that was showing his videos like 10 years ago. And he was like recording like from his apartment and like with his phone and like everything was very shitty. And like someone commented of like, I've been watching you since then. So it feels like
Yeah.
a trip down memory lane. And it's just like, you sometimes have people who have seen you grow in there. So it's just like, let's just
Yeah.
stick with this. And I think like that's gonna be our goal, just to continue thinking, like enjoying the process and really like doing it for the love of doing it. And then
Hmm.
whatever happens, happens. But yeah, it's basically just our little heart project.
Ah, I love that. Oh my God, are we coming to the end?
We're
This
coming
is
to the
so
end, Olivia.
sad. I feel like I'm gonna have this void in my life for the next few months of being like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like I haven't put my headphones
There's
on
a
in a
to do.
while. There's something
I
to do.
know. I'm
Yeah.
gonna miss this, and I hope that I don't lose my flow. And then next time we join, it's like, how did we do this? So maybe we should do like a little, like instead of doing
Yes.
video calls, we can do this, and
Yeah,
then just
yeah.
remember what we do.
Totally. But we don't have a date for when we're coming back yet. So you'll
Mhm.
just have to stay tuned to like our Instagram for that update because I'm we can't even figure out our lives 6 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now.
Mhm.
So just hang in with us. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, and we'll be back. We'll be back at some point and like recharge and like I think like as I mentioned, like I think like our social media will continue to, like
Yeah.
continue to put things out there because that's the type of things that you need to continue to boost. And I think we have so much content that we still have to like
So
excuses to
much.
go back and I think it's gonna be interesting to maybe now you may be able to like pull things from like one of the episodes that I edited and
Hmm.
like maybe find different nuggets in there. So I think it's gonna be nice to have this chance to like go back to our content, see what we did, and just like start to improve things. But definitely things will come out, and we're excited to just enjoy some extra free time once we finish publishing all of this because we right now we still have things to do.
Yes. So, yeah. I mean, I guess that's it. Hey.
Yeah, that's it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this season. And I mean, I heard Fernando came in, so maybe he'll give us a little appearance
Can we
of
get
where.
one more Fernando appearance? Just I need him to pop into the background and be like, "Hey," and then we should do like a reel with like clips of Fernando popping up in all these different episodes.
Showing up in day to day and then
Yeah,
like a little
yeah.
backstage because like sometimes we do need it for IT but sometimes we don't need him and he still shows up but we appreciate also Fernando for all the IT support that he has given us.
Truly.
But yeah, guys, we really we thank you for listening, for being here, and we are very excited for our break and then to be back.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
See, guys, that's Olivia not feeling much.
Bye, guys. We'll miss you.